Hello, dear listeners of the Storytelling Podcast channel. My name is Eric. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a marketer at a large advertising agency in Boston. I want to share with you a very personal and painful story that completely turned my life upside down. A story about how one fatal mistake can destroy what you loved and valued most in the world. About blind passion, regrets, guilt, and attempts to atone for an unforgivable act. Let me start by telling you a bit about myself and my family. My wife Amanda and I have been together for 8 years, and we have a wonderful 5-year-old son, Lucas. Amanda is a talented neurosurgeon. She's madly in love with her work and completely dedicates herself to it. I'm immensely proud of my wife's professional achievements, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't acutely feel the lack of her attention and care at times. Endless night shifts, emergency surgeries, round-the-clock duties. All of this takes its toll on our relationship. We rarely saw each other, talked, or spent time together. Even our intimate life had dwindled to nothing. Amanda was always tired, worn out, with no energy left for marital duties. Coping with household chores, raising Lucas, and loneliness wasn't easy. Work also demanded full dedication and creativity, draining my energy. Gradually, I fell into a kind of apathy bordering on depression. I started snapping at my son over trifles, moping around. Amanda saw my depressed state, but just shrugged her shoulders, saying there was nothing to be done. That's just how her job was. She suggested her mother, Evelyn, move in with us for a while to help with Lucas and the housework. I didn't particularly object. An extra pair of hands and a female presence in the house wouldn't hurt. Plus, I always had a friendly, warm relationship with my mother-in-law. Evelyn readily agreed to live with us. Being retired, she had long been bored and dreamed of babysitting her grandson. Moreover, after her husband's death 2 years ago, my mother-in-law had really declined, sinking into melancholy. Moving in with us became a kind of therapy for her, a change of scenery. I must admit, Evelyn turned out to be a real lifesaver. She took over all the cooking and cleaning, took Lucas to his classes, to the pool, for walks. For the first time in a long time, I had free time for myself and my hobbies. I was immensely grateful to my mother-in-law, seeing how much pleasure she took in looking after her grandson in the house. From being gloomy and burned out, she visibly transformed into a cheerful, active, rejuvenated woman. I was amazed at how, at 56, Evelyn maintained such incredible energy, curiosity, and vivacity of mind. She loved our chats over morning coffee and late evening tea when all the household chores were done. We could talk for hours about the latest news, interesting books and movies, share memories. With Evelyn, it was surprisingly easy and cozy. She knew how to support, lift spirits, give sound advice. Gradually, I realized that my mother-in-law's company had replaced my communication with my ever-busy wife. It was Evelyn I rushed to after work. To her, I poured out the emotions accumulated during the day. With her, I shared my innermost thoughts. I didn't notice how I began to look at my mother-in-law not just as a relative and helper. I admired her grace, stately figure, luxurious gray hair styled in an elegant hairdo. I was amazed at how she managed to always be impeccably dressed and made up, even if she had been bustling in the kitchen all day. I admired her radiant smile, the dimples on her cheeks, her lively facial expressions, the charm of a mature, confident woman. I caught myself feeling long-forgotten excitement and thrill in Evelyn's company, as if I had returned to my school years when I first fell in love. Gradually, my attachment to my mother-in-law grew into a deep, all-consuming feeling. I craved her attention and approval, waited for our evening get-togethers like manna from heaven. I furtively admired her chiseled profile and body curves, imagining how I would embrace her, caress her silky skin, bury my face in her hair. I fantasized about kisses, caresses, bedroom madness. These thoughts both horrified and drove me crazy, but I couldn't help myself. Evelyn attracted me like a magnet, depriving me of reason and will. Next to her, I felt special, desired, truly a man, all that I so acutely lacked in my marriage with Amanda. The flirtation became more explicit. The tension between us thickened. I caught Evelyn's long, mischievous, knowing glances. Smiles, accidental touches, frivolous jokes, compliments, seemingly meaningless, but promising so much. My mother-in-law seemed to be testing the boundaries of what was permissible, testing the strength of my moral principles. And my heart raced wildly at her proximity. My mouth went dry. My palms sweated like a pimply schoolboy's. Common sense kept telling me that this was wrong, disgusting, immoral, that I shouldn't feel anything for my wife's mother other than familial feelings. But you can't control your heart. The desire to take risks, break taboos, balance on the edge became more unbearable with each passing day. On that fateful evening, Amanda had once again stayed for a night shift, and Lucas was peacefully asleep in his room. Evelyn and I, as usual, were sitting in the kitchen with a bottle of wine, talking about everything under the sun. We talked about my work, about how tired I was of the endless chase for leads and contracts. We discussed my relationship with Amanda, her excessive dedication to her career at the expense of family. I got more and more worked up, complaining about loneliness, lack of warmth and understanding from my wife. And then Evelyn suddenly covered my hand with hers. She squeezed it, gently stroking my wrist with her thumb. She said quietly, looking straight into my eyes, "My poor boy, how hard it must be for you. If only you knew how much I want to comfort you, heal your wounds, to take all your pain upon myself." At these words and intimate touch, everything seemed to blur before my eyes. My heart started pounding wildly, my throat constricted with a spasm. Throwing aside the last doubts, I clasped Evelyn in an embrace and hungrily pressed my lips to hers in a long, frenzied kiss. My mother-in-law froze for a moment and then eagerly responded, pressing herself even tighter against me with her whole body. This was the last straw. The dam broke, and we were both flooded with a wave of white-hot desire. How we ended up in the guest bedroom, I don't remember anymore. Only some blurred images remain in my memory. Evelyn feverishly pulling her sweater over her head, tossing it aside. My hand sliding along the inner surface of her thigh, moving higher and higher. My mother-in-law's flexible back arching towards me, responding to every touch. Ragged breathing, sobs, prolonged moans, whispers through kisses. Pale skin in the moonlight, a scattering of moles on her shoulders, alluring curves of her body. My hands gliding over these perfect contours, eliciting sweet sighs from Evelyn. A feeling of maddening, incredible closeness, emerging not only of bodies but of souls. The rhythm of coitus as old as the world. The beating of our bodies in unison, scorching breath, and the intoxicating musky scent. That night we made love with a kind of frenzy, completely losing our heads with desire. I couldn't get enough of being close to Evelyn, her attractiveness, her magnetism. I covered every inch of her trembling body with kisses, caressing and inflaming her more and more. I reveled in the moans and sighs that escaped her lips from my persistent caresses. My mother-in-law writhed beneath me, clinging to my shoulders, fervently whispering some nonsensical foolishness. She begged me not to stop. I think I was also mumbling in ecstasy that I had never experienced anything like this, that she was driving me crazy. The reality around us seemed to cease to exist. The world narrowed to the size of the bed on which we were intertwined in ecstasy. Satiated, I fell back on the pillows, drawing the heated, sweat-soaked Evelyn to me. I stroked her disheveled strands of hair, pressed my lips to her temple, mumbled some tender nonsense. And in my head there was a blissful, ringing emptiness. I floated in weightlessness, thinking about nothing, dissolved in post-orgasmic bliss. Only on the edge of consciousness did some anxious thought persistently buzz. Something about Amanda, about my vow at the altar, about the sin of adultery. But I brushed it off like an annoying fly. Later, all later. Right now, I wanted only peace and tranquility, oblivion in the arms of a satisfied, satiated like a cat lover. Sobering came in the morning, along with the dawn and the realization of the monstrosity of what had been done. Mother of God, I had slept with the woman who gave birth to my wife, with the one who raised and nurtured Amanda, who had sewn her wedding dress with her own hands. How, oh, how could I have fallen so low, betraying everything dear to me at once? I felt nauseous with disgust at myself and my rotten nature. Jumping out of bed, I paced around the room, frantically dressing and muttering incoherent apologies. I babbled that this was all a terrible mistake, a clouding of judgment that would never happen again, that I loved Amanda and couldn't so vilely deceive her trust. I begged Evelyn to forget everything, to write off what had happened as a flash of madness and behave as if nothing had happened. After listening to my fervent, disjointed tirade, my mother-in-law just laughed bitterly and shook her head. She calmly remarked that I wasn't the first and wouldn't be the last son-in-law to be tempted by the forbidden fruit, and that I shouldn't berate myself too much. After all, she had seduced me herself, giving in to long-suppressed desire. But so be it. She would pretend that nothing had happened between us. After all, she also had something to lose if the truth came to light. I spent the next week as if in a fog, tormented by guilt and torn by contradictions. I tried not to even look at Evelyn, avoiding any contact. She also behaved impeccably politely and detachedly, as if nothing had happened. Only sometimes did I catch her wistful, burning gaze. In it, I could easily read an unquenched thirst for new intimacy. Amanda, it seems, suspected something. She began to stage silent scenes of jealousy, trying to find out why I wasn't myself. With her inherent thoroughness, she examined my shirts for lipstick and foreign perfumes, checked my phone. I made excuses and evaded as best I could, insisting that I was just tired and overloaded at work. I lied more and more confidently and brazenly, growing a protective shell of pretense. At night, I tossed and turned sleeplessly, replaying the details of what had happened in my head. I remembered the intoxicating aroma of her skin, her intermittent breathing, the silkiness and trembling of her body. My whole being yearned to repeat this mad pleasure. But my brain stubbornly objected. You can't. It's dirty, unworthy. This way you can slide into complete absurdity, sleep with your wife's best friend, or even start a harem of her relatives. No, I had to keep myself in check. I had to suppress the temptation at all costs, otherwise everything would go to hell. But after a couple of weeks, all my good intentions were shattered by the merciless fate of lust. Exhausted by loneliness and dissatisfaction, I spat on the arguments of reason. Waiting for Amanda to stay for another night shift, I came to Evelyn's room. She was waiting for me, half naked, languid, with a predatory gleam in her eyes. She whispered, smiling alluringly, "I knew you would come. Come to me!" From there, everything went in a circle of debauchery and deception. Evelyn and I became lovers, meeting secretly at every opportunity. We engaged in mad, furious, frenzied intimacy, as if for the last time. In her bedroom, in my office, on the back seat of the car. We indulged in each other, losing our minds with passion. We talked about love, made grandiose plans, dreamed of running away somewhere to the edge of the world. And all this, behind the back of my unsuspecting wife. At first, the adrenaline of secret rendezvous intoxicated, driving an intoxicating cocktail of lust and sense of danger through my veins. But over time, dark and oppressive thoughts replaced the euphoria. Insomnia, self-loathing, fits of panic fear. What if Amanda finds out? She'll file for divorce, get custody of Lucas, arrange my complete social annihilation. The situation was aggravated by pangs of conscience and pity for my wife. After all, she's not to blame for anything, except perhaps for loving her profession too much and being too dedicated to it. And it was I, a cowardly and spineless bastard who didn't find the strength to talk to her honestly, to fix the cracks in our relationship before crawling under my mother-in-law's skirt. Hell, I didn't even bother to discuss the problems of our marriage with Amanda. I chose the easiest path. I plunged into the murky waters of adultery, drowning the remnants of decency and common sense in them. Meanwhile, Amanda continued to torment me with suspicions and questions. Now she added complaints about Evelyn, saying she had completely spoiled the grandson, not allowing us to fulfill our parental duties. The atmosphere was heating up. Nerves were ringing like taut strings. I rushed between two fires in complete prostration, not knowing how to resolve the situation. I didn't even consider the option of breaking up with Evelyn. I had become attached to her completely, on all levels. I couldn't bring myself to confess to Amanda either. I continued to tread water, sinking deeper and deeper. The truth was revealed in the most shameful and ridiculous way. That evening, I once again stayed at home with Lucas. Amanda had gone to a medical symposium in another city. After putting my son to bed, I took a shower and crept into Evelyn's bedroom. We made love fiercely, frenziedly, not even trying to restrain our moans and screams. Of course, it was at this moment that Amanda decided to return. Either the conference was canceled or her family intuition kicked in. Finding a picturesque scene, a naked husband in the arms of a half-naked mother, my wife froze in silent shock. And then she screamed so that my blood froze in my veins. I'll never forget that scream. It combined pain, horror, disgust, disbelief, and a thirst for murder. Amanda was screaming at the top of her lungs, clutching her heart. She screamed that I was the last bastard and scoundrel, fucking her mother in the marital bed, that she was depriving me of parental rights, would file for divorce and alimony, that she would expose my escapades for all to see. Evelyn had a full-blown hysterical fit. She curled up into a ball, sobbing and wailing, "Daughter, forgive me!" I sat naked and red as a lobster, pulling the sheet up to my chin. I mumbled some pathetic excuses, begged Amanda to listen. All in vain. The mere sight of me made her want to vomit. The following weeks turned into a real hell for me. Amanda and Lucas moved to her sister's place, ignoring all my attempts to establish contact. She filed for divorce and division of property, hired a lawyer, saying she would defend her rights to the end. I was fired from work for professional incompetence. Apparently, an unfaithful husband and a scandalous story didn't fit the image of a decent marketer. Friends turned away. Family looked at me like I was the last scoundrel. My mother said she had raised and educated me in vain. Look, instead of gratitude, I had disgraced everyone. Evelyn was also demoted to pariah status. Amanda threw a terrible scandal at her right in front of me, spitting and shaking with sobs. She screamed that she would rather never have been born than have such a corrupt mother. Amanda's sisters personally slapped my mother-in-law across the face, promising her to burn in hell forever for seducing her son-in-law. My son didn't want to hear about the homewrecker grandmother. In short, Evelyn's impeccable reputation was left in tatters. Under the hail of universal condemnation, we had no choice but to go into deep defense. Evelyn rented an apartment on the outskirts, which I often visited. Locked up there, we tormented ourselves and each other with endless conversations, self-flagellation, and tears of repentance. But paradoxically, we couldn't separate either. Desire, intensified 100-fold by stress and guilt, pushed us into each other's arms. We dissolved in each other selflessly, frenziedly, almost masochistically, as if we wanted to drown all the pain, fear, and horror of what we'd done in ecstasy. But this couldn't go on for long. Eventually, Evelyn's nerves gave out. She had a heart attack right in the middle of another rendezvous. I barely got her to the hospital, begging her the whole way not to black out and to hold on. The doctors pulled my mother-in-law back from the brink of death, but categorically forbade any excitement. When I, all emotional, rushed to her ward, Evelyn stopped me with a gesture. She wearily said, "Eric, enough. We've paid enough for minutes of intimacy with years of suffering. It's time to wake up and move on. You still have a chance to get your wife and son back, and I have a chance to reconcile with my daughters. Let's stop before it's too late." I had no choice but to agree. Evelyn was right. Our romance, which had started so intoxicatingly sweet, was turning into two bitter consequences. We said goodbye, embracing one last time, and went our separate ways. My mother-in-law left to live out her days with relatives in Europe, and I shut myself in four walls, trying somehow to piece together the shards of my former life. Of course, getting Amanda back wasn't easy. I wrote her letters, bombarded her with emails and texts, begging her to forgive me and give me another chance. I swore I would never betray her again, that I had cast Evelyn out of my heart once and for all. I went to family psychologists, trying to reach my wife through the prism of their professional advice. At meetings with Lucas, I showered him with gifts and entertainment, just to maintain a connection. Gradually, the ice began to thaw. Amanda allowed me to see my son on weekends, without supervisors. She accepted my repentance, although I don't expect to be fully forgiven. The wound is too deep, the hurt too great. Now, 6 months later, the worst is behind us. The divorce process is in full swing, but my ex and I calmly discuss it. I moved to a rented apartment nearby, from where it's convenient to visit Lucas. I found a new job, albeit not as prestigious. I'm trying to get my life and routine back on track, dealing with the consequences of my own stupidity. Evelyn and I no longer communicate. She made it clear that it would be better for everyone to leave the past in the past. She changed her phone number and doesn't get in touch. Sometimes I catch myself thinking that I miss her, miss our special emotional closeness, that I would like to touch her warm skin again, feel the trembling and sweetness of her body. But then I mentally pull myself up. Enough, I've already made a mess of things. I need to learn to move on and somehow atone for the sins I've committed. Every day I pray to God and Amanda for forgiveness. I try to become a better father for Lucas, to patch up relationships with loved ones. I work a lot on myself, analyzing the motives behind my fatal mistake. I try to turn repentance into wisdom and strength. Slowly, bit by bit, I regain the favor of friends and colleagues. I hope that someday I'll be able to win back my wife's love too, to earn it at least as the mother of my son, a part of my family. For now, I have to live with the mark of an unfaithful husband and prodigal son-in-law, atoning for a great sin with great abstinence and work of the soul. My advice to all couples going through a family crisis: hold on, fight for your love, no matter how fragile and hopeless it may seem at times. Talk to each other openly, don't close yourself off. Admit mistakes, ask for forgiveness, be grateful for every moment together, and most importantly, don't fall for provocations from the outside, be it a persistent secretary or a lonely relative. If something has gone wrong in your relationship, don't rush to seek solutions in someone else's bed. Believe me, it's not worth it. Adultery is not a way out of a crisis, but a path to nowhere. A one-way ticket from which there may be no way back. Momentary pleasure will turn into years of mental anguish, contempt from loved ones, the collapse of everything you've built for years. Especially if your affair partner turns out to be the mother or sister of your spouse. Having trampled on family ties, you will never wash away the shame, even if you are formally forgiven. It's a stigma for life, which you'll have to somehow live with. I know this bitter truth better than anyone. With my own hands, I destroyed what I should have cherished more than my own eyes. Giving in to the charms of the forbidden fruit, I lost the right to call myself a decent family man. And now, for many years, I will be paying for a momentary lapse in judgment and reason. Therefore, I urge you, dear friends, be prudent. Value your chosen ones. Tell them about your love. Pamper, surprise, thank them day after day. Warm yourself by the hearth of your home. And if doubt creeps into your heart, don't keep it secret. Bring it to a family council. Together, hand in hand and with God's help, you will overcome any adversity. As long as loyalty and memory of each other are alive, nothing is impossible. Just remember why you fell in love in the first place and fight for your happiness, without compromises, looking back, or fear. And most importantly, drive away any temptation of an extramarital affair. No matter how alluring, intoxicating, or promising the treacherous passion may be, it will ruin you and your loved ones. Don't indulge weaknesses. Don't be led by momentary desires. What seems like a breath of fresh air will turn into a suffocating noose around your neck. Once you break free from it, you will never be the same again. No amount of effort will wash away the stains of shame and guilt. So be wiser than me. Don't make a fatal mistake. Love your spouses. Fight for family happiness to the very end. And may your love withstand the test of strength, not falter in the face of storms and tempests. Remember, the road to forgiveness is always open for pure thoughts and sincere repentance. Perhaps having gone through pain and trials, your marriage will only become stronger, which means that even from ruins you can build a beautiful castle, a castle of mature love regained. Thank you for listening to my confession to the end. I hope my example will save you from irreparable missteps on your life path. Learn the right lessons from it. Don't repeat my mistakes in pursuit of self-deception. Build your destiny on trust, forgiveness, and self-sacrifice, not on lies and betrayal. And may God protect you. Be happy, love, and be loved. Take care of each other. It's the only thing we have in this mortal life. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.